Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're getting into the nuts and bolts of building a content monitoring bot you can actually trust. Because let's be real, tracking web changes isn't just some neat technical trick anymore, it's an absolute operational necessity. But here's the catch. A content bot is only useful if your team actually trusts the alerts it spits out.
So, picture this. A team misses a pricing change, and nobody notices for 2 whole days. It's a terrifying, totally real-world scenario, right? Think about the silent failure happening behind the scenes there. If your alerts are noisy, late, or just plain confusing, critical web changes are still going to slip right past the people who need them most.
And watch how fast this snowballs into a total operational disaster. At hour 0, a pricing change goes unnoticed. Okay, by hour 12, your sales team is literally on calls using old comparison points. Hour 24, growth is running expensive ad campaigns based on completely outdated positioning. And finally, at hour 48, operations only spots the update because somebody just happened to check the competitor site manually. The problem here wasn't a lack of information, the problem was a totally unreliable workflow.
To fix this, we've got a really clear playbook today. First, the operating model reality. Second, a reliable monitoring checklist. Third, common mistakes to avoid. And fourth, a quick monitoring system FAQ. Let's just dive right in.
Okay, Section 1, the operating model reality, beyond simple web scraping.
You know, content change monitoring sounds so simple on paper. Pick a page, fetch the content, compare it, send an alert. Easy, right? But once your team depends on those alerts, that bot literally becomes a core part of your operating model. If an alert comes in late, the team responds late. If the system captures messy layout changes instead of the actual meaningful content, your team just wastes time looking at it. And the absolute worst case? The system fails silently, and leadership assumes nothing changed, when in reality, the monitor just broke.
So the real question we have to ask isn't just, can we detect page changes? The ultimate question is, can we monitor meaningful changes reliably enough for teams to actually act on them? It's a huge shift from just technical detection to real operational reliability.
Which brings us to Section 2, the Reliable Monitoring Checklist, our 8-step playbook.
Here is the complete overview. We start by defining the business purpose, choosing meaningful pages, and selecting the content area. Then we set the right cadence and define alert thresholds. And finally, we store history, validate before acting, and assign ownership. Let's break these down real quick.
Step 1, define the business purpose. You have to ask yourself, what decision does this monitoring actually support? Is it pricing intelligence, legal review, competitor tracking, campaign planning? Because if tracking a page doesn't support a real, tangible decision, it's just creating noise. Which naturally leads to Step 2, choose meaningful pages. You really want to prioritize the pages where changes actually impact your revenue, your customers, or your compliance.
Okay, Step 3, selecting the right content area. Please, whatever you do, do not monitor the entire page by default. You have to isolate the meaningful content from all that layout noise. Think of CSS selectors like a digital highlighter. Use them to target specific things like pricing tables or terms of service while automatically ignoring the headers, footers, and those annoying cookie banners. You just want the signal, not the static.
Step 4 is setting the right cadence. Your checking schedule has to match the business urgency. A high-stakes pricing page? That might demand checks every 1 to 4 hours. Product listings? Maybe every 6 to 12 hours is fine. And a standard legal terms page usually only needs a daily sweep.
Step 5, define alert thresholds. Look, not every change deserves an alert. A formatting shift, like a new font or a footer tweak, is definitely not the same as a massive pricing change or a new policy term. You have to decide exactly what counts as a meaningful change before you start blasting your team's channels with notifications.
Now let's look at the architecture that actually makes all this happen. You've got a capture-aware fetcher to grab the page, an extractor to pull the data, a diff engine to compare it, and a dispatcher to send the alert. But notice that snapshot store right in the middle? That covers Step 6, storing history. A single alert just tells you something changed, but history tells you if it's an actual trend. After that comes Step 7, validating before acting. Automation detects the signal, sure, but humans still need to confirm it before making big moves. And finally, Step 8, assigning ownership. Because if no one owns the alert review, the whole system just creates confusion instead of action. All right, moving to Section 3, common mistakes to avoid, or basically, why these bots fail.
Let's rapid fire through 6 common pitfalls that'll absolutely wreck your setup.
Number 1, monitoring full pages and alerting on pure layout noise. 2, sending every single change to the exact same channel with the exact same urgency. 3, silent failures, meaning not tracking if the source was actually checked successfully. 4, overwriting your snapshots and totally losing your history. 5, failing to assign a clear owner to review the alerts. And 6, building automated monitors without checking permissions, rate limits, or compliance requirements. You only want to do this in permitted environments, folks.
On to Section 4, our monitoring system FAQ. Just some rapid-fire responses to big questions. First up, a vital question to keep your scope in check. Should teams monitor every single important-looking page? The definitive answer here is no. Keep your focus incredibly tight. Monitor only the pages that actually support real business decisions or operational workflows. That's it.
Second question, and this addresses a massive systemic threat to your project. What is the biggest risk in content monitoring?
Alert fatigue. Absolutely. It is a silent killer for this kind of operating model. If your system sends out way too much noise, people will simply stop trusting it, and they'll start completely ignoring the alerts.
Third and final FAQ, thinking about the overall health of your setup, what is the absolute most important metric?
Source freshness. No question. Your team needs to know exactly when each page was last checked successfully. You want to make absolutely sure leadership never mistakes a silent system failure for, oh hey, look, no competitor changes today. And that really brings us to the ultimate practical takeaway here. Content change monitoring isn't about watching more pages, it is about watching the right pages, extracting the right content, alerting the right people, and creating the right response.
So before you go build or expand a monitor, ask yourself these 4 things. Is this source permitted? Is the signal actually meaningful? Who owns the workflow? And exactly how will the team act on the alert? Answer those, and that is how content monitoring becomes a deeply trusted signal system, and not just another noisy distraction. Definitely something to chew on as you audit your own workflows. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.